having a difference of opinion, a flash of anger with another here in Chattanooga. This is David Toulis, and I would like you to think about a side gig. Here you are, my listener, with your job. You've been at it for a long time. I was in the same job at the Chattanooga Times Free Press for more than 24 years, and evidently not a man of much spunk and ambition, stayed in the same position that whole time, copy editor. I did handle the business section, but it was a long stay. And there is a kind of anesthesia that comes over one in a job like that. One forgets that there's a larger picture. And I don't think, even as I was near the end of my time there, that I could really see the larger picture of that industry and business. And so here you are in your job. How can you see more in your industry? How can you maybe change your calling, change your life, do something that is prosperous and different from where you are now, where you have the prospect of making the profit? Because right now, as an employee, you have only your wages, right? Your wages are an equal pay for your value. There's no profit in wages, though you may be glad to get them and may think you're well paid. In the end, legally, there's no profit in wages. So why is the union not complaining about the rape of wages and as if wages were profit? They accept taxation on capital gains, and they accept it on wages too, but wages are not capital gain. Kevin Cherrick is a serial entrepreneur. He runs a year-old business now named Infinite Closet, and he'll say something about that. But Kevin, what I want you to talk to me about today, and to my listener, or our listener, is the side gig. How can he think from his current position, think in terms of having doing something on the side where he could develop it into a business? What do you say, Kevin Cherrick?
Thank you, David. You know, when I'm thinking about someone who's been in a career for a long time, much like you were at Times Free Press, that career, it can become so specialized, it can get really quite stale. And after years or potentially even decades, someone can forget what is exciting about work. And one of the real benefits of a side hustle or starting your own business is that you can become reinvigorated with the process of building and creating. And so how does that work? What are all the things that you can do when you start a little side hustle, a little side business? And what should the goals be? I'm going to kind of go down a list of things that I think you get. Number one, once you've been in a career for a long time and you start something new, you're going to get the opportunity to learn. And this can really be something that's energizing. There's so much to learn when you start a new business on the side. First off, because one of the greatest opportunities that we have to start a side business that will fit in with your family life, with your professional life, with your hobbies, is through the internet. And you have to understand and embrace the idea that you're going to have to learn a lot. And sometimes if you're in the middle of a career, we're not even used to learning anymore. You know, we learned everything in college and in the first 5 years of our career, and it can become something that we just coast on the work we did 10 or 15 years ago. And so sometimes you get to this point where you have to learn how to set up a website. How do we do internet ads? How do I post a blog? How do I edit a picture or a video? How do I set up these things? They become very intimidating. And we hit this block in our mind that says, oh, I can't do this. This isn't as easy as all the things that I've developed decades worth of know-how. And I understand how to do those. And we want to stop. And it's like, you know what, this is a lot easier to just turn on the TV and sit on my couch and eat ice cream every night. So you really get the opportunity to learn new things. And you're going to want to embrace that. If you're starting a new business, you're going to have the opportunity. You're going to have to learn a whole lot of new things, no matter what type of business you go into. And I think that's something that you should definitely look into. The second opportunity that you get when you start a little side hustle is you get a brand new opportunity to network. Once again, the nature of the 21st century capitalist system is such that we become extremely specialized, so specialized that oftentimes when we get that question in a social environment of, oh, Kevin, what do you do? You don't even really know. I'm a copy editor at Times Free Press. Well, what does that mean? Oh, does that mean you're a reporter? Well, no. Well, what does that mean? And so we get into this explanation of getting into the minutia because our economy has become so specialized. And that's why we have such a phenomenal standard of living. But people don't know what to do with the intricacies of an engineer or an attorney. And they, because, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, the nature of business and of jobs is to specialize. And that means to get down into a niche. When you are starting your own side hustle, let's say you're an engineer at TVA. Guess what? No one cares about your engineering job at TVA. They just don't. They have nothing to connect that to. It's no interest to them. Doesn't interact with their life at all. And so, but if you start a side hustle, you have something else to talk about that is much more accessible. I'll give you an example. I was at my gym last week, which is Get Built CrossFit downtown Chattanooga, and was just had that conversation with a random guy sitting next to me, and he said, "What do you do?" And I told him about my business, Infinite Closet. We do micro storage on demand. We deliver storage boxes to people. They fill them up. We take them away, store them whenever they want them back. We deliver them within 24 hours. Oh, okay, cool. He said, I said, well, turn it around, right? I want to reciprocate. I want to be social. What do you do for a living? And he said, well, I'm an engineer at TVA. My eyes glazed over because I don't know anything about engineering. I can't even ask a coherent follow-up. And they said, but I started a business as well. I said, oh, great. Tell me about it. And he actually got into manufacturing this niche Japanese toy that it was a real long story on how he got into it, but it was super cool. And he ended up selling this business after a couple of years. And we talked about what that opportunity gave him to learn. It gave him a sense of confidence in his job. If anything were to happen to his job, if he wanted to leave his job, if he were unhappy at his job, he started to have conflict with coworkers or bosses. He now has the know-how and the experience that, I could start a business and get it profitable and create a saleable asset to provide for me and my family. And that gives you the real chance to talk with people at a whole nother level beyond, well, I'm an attorney, I'm an accountant, I'm an engineer. All the things that we all kind of set our sights on going into college, which is like, this is going to be the greatest because the average starting median salary for graduates of engineering schools is $65,000. And then 15 years later, we're all bored with our lives. I'd love to hear it. Give us a call at 800-8949 if you want to talk about your side hustle or talk about something you've been thinking about. A lot of times the best side hustles come from ideas that we can't get rid of. So I'll give you an example of that. Last year, I'm very interested in automated cars. I'm stoked about automated cars. I think we're going to save tens of thousands of lives. We're going to save billions and billions of dollars in our economy every year. I'm interested in, and so I'm doing all this research on automated cars. And they are in Phoenix right now, and they are starting in Atlanta right down the street, and they're going to be here before you know it. It's a whole nother subject. So I'm doing all this research, and I'm recognizing some trends, like the fact that people are moving to cities more and more every single year, like the fact that real estate costs in cities are going up and up and up and up and up, and the fact that we have this real drive towards minimalism. Tons of people in these niche little communities on the internet are all interested in stripping down their lifestyle. And so I say, okay, well, what does this all got to do? Is there any way to tie this together? And it hit on me this idea that became Infinite Closet called micro storage on demand, which was, okay, if I'm a city dweller, if I live in the city and I'm paying some outrageous amount for my little studio apartment downtown Manhattan or San Francisco or Chattanooga, and Amazon makes it so easy to buy things. We live in a consumerist culture, and that buy now button is addicting. I get that little dopamine hit, and I fill my little apartment with stuff that I want to kind of keep on there. Some reason I could use it, but I just don't have room in my apartment. What could I do? I really don't need complete self-storage bin. And I have lots of ideas. And most of my ideas, I do nothing with them. And you probably do the same with your ideas. But this idea wouldn't go away. I just thought, these trends are really, it's human nature. It's human nature to click buy. It's human nature to acquire. We live in a consumerist society. I don't think they're going to go away. How could I explore this idea? And So I started to think, well, what's the next thing that I could do? Well, I could start to rent out some of these storage.
Well, what were you doing at the time these thoughts came to you?
Yeah, I was a consultant. I helped gym owners all around the world run their gyms more efficiently and effectively. And so I had a full-time job, and this idea, I was like, well, what could I get away from? And that's when you know you want to take the next step. When you have an idea that's just stuck in the back of your brain and you can't. So I finally got my little yellow legal pads and said, okay, I'll start to write this out. That was my first step. Was I'm going to write this out and write out what am I really thinking of? What is the idea? Now, Josh Kaufman in his book, A Personal MBA, talks about every business has 5 parts to it. He says it's value creation, value delivery, sales, marketing, and finance. Most of the time, if you've got an idea, it's around the concept of value creation, right? So my idea with Infinite Closet was, well, we're going to do storage at the level of the box, like the cardboard box, but we're going to make it this, high density plastic box. I'm going to break it down. That doesn't exist yet. Okay, that's the idea. Let me write that down. And so we get really caught up into value creation, value delivery. How do people get it? Well, they're going to sign up on the line, and then I'll deliver the box, and then I'll pick it up, and you kind of figure all that stuff out. And you can do this with your business as well. Most small side hustles don't struggle on value creation or value delivery. They struggle in marketing and sales. And so that's where a lot of times you need to start thinking about, okay, what would I do to be able to get this out in front of people? Because there's, millions of websites out there that nobody ever looks at. The next step that people want to do is you've got to start experimenting. And I want you to think about your side hustle entirely in experimental terms. If you think about it not in terms of this has to work, but in terms of feedback from an experiment, right? Scientists, they do an experiment and they're going to see what works. Thomas Edison famously said, I found 1,000 ways not to invent the light bulb, something like that. And so when you start to change your mindset around, I'm going to try something and it's going to get me some feedback that will inform my better attempt next time, it frees us up from the expectations and the weight around success and failure that so often accompany a new business venture. And this is something that serial entrepreneurs, they really drive and they thrive on, is the idea of my personal ego is divorced from the outcomes of these experiments. Because we all know that what we do for a living is such a large part of our identity here in the United States. So this is not your identity, right? You have your day job. You're an engineer, you're an accountant, you're a teacher, or you're a father, or you're a wife. And so this is just a little experiment you're running on the side. And one of the things that's so empowering about a side hustle is that you are always on the precipice of Christmas morning. What do I mean by that? Christmas morning when you're a kid, tomorrow is Christmas. I'm getting presents. What is going to show up underneath that tree? And honestly, having a side hustle is like that, in that you never know what little step is going to open up the floodgates for your business. And if you can start having experiments to try out, well, does anybody even want to have storage at the level of the box? Or does everybody just want 50 square feet of storage and they'll schlep all their stuff over there? And that's the only thing people want. We don't know. I saw a tweet the other day that talked about the 7 main reasons that venture capital funded startups fail. And the number 1 reason they fail is a lack of product market fit. Product market fit is, does anybody want what you've got? And when you're doing a little side hustle, you can experiment very inexpensively because your bills are paid by your day job. You can take the time to experiment and see, does anyone care about this? Ramit Sethi at his website, Growth Lab, has got tons of material on how to vet your idea and how to decide, does anybody care about what you care about? Like, for example, an idea that I've never been able to get rid out of my head since I got training at a national brokerage account in 2006 is, I know how to get an unlimited amount of contributions into a Roth IRA. Does anybody care about that? They probably do. And we have all kinds of objections, internal objections. What you're going to have is when you come up with an idea, you'll have the internal objections come up on why this will never work. And being able to evaluate whether those are true or not and is really, really important. So, but if you go online and say, does anybody care about Roth IRA contributions? Well, there's millions of pages and there's forums and topics on Reddit and all kinds of gurus out there who will tell you, well, here's the limit on how much you can put in your Roth IRA this year. And they're wrong, but nobody talks about it. So how can we get that out? So you have the opportunity to network. Of course, the real reason anyone starts a business is for money. You have the opportunity to make some money. And when it's on the side, it's all extra. If you think about this, we all have lifestyle creep. We all are on the hedonic treadmill. We all spend as much or maybe a little more than what we make. And what that means is that when you create a little side hustle, and let's just say your side hustle made $1,000 and that was it. That $1,000 is 1,000 unaccounted dollars that you hadn't already spent. And so it feels like it's $5,000. It feels like an absolute treasure chest has been delivered to your house. All of a sudden, your bank account is like blowing up. And so, of course, you get the opportunity to make some extra money. And that's super exciting and motivating. But there are so many other benefits to starting your side hustle. The fourth reason to start your side hustle is it can make you better and more empathetic at your day job. Let's not discount the day job. You are working in a business that has product market fit, that has a ton of infrastructure, that's already done a lot of the hard work. When you do your side hustle and you realize how hard it is to find product market fit and build an audience and market and get people to actually pull the trigger and buy your service or business, it gives you a lot of appreciation for the job that maybe you didn't appreciate before. And it allows you to create and understand a much wider picture when we all get so narrowed down. We don't understand why our mean boss won't let us do the perfect thing that would just make our day job so much better. Give us a call at 800-8949. Love to hear your stories about what ideas you have that maybe you haven't taken action on or what you're trying right now, that you hit some road snags. We'll talk about it. But you develop a serious level of humility when you're trying a bunch of experiments and the feedback is you don't know what you're doing yet. And that's okay. Why would you expect to start a new business if you've never started one and have it just blow up in the good way right out of the gate? One subtopic I want to talk about is please ignore the broad business press. No offense, David, to the Times Free Press and the business section.
Go ahead.
The business press, if we think about what the incentives of the business press are and who takes advantage of that, no one does press for woman starts job or starts side hustle 3 years in, makes $300. 10 years in, makes $300,000. Like, you won't hear that story for 10 years. All we hear about is, well, I'm a programmer and I started a website and the first hour I launched it had 20,000 hits. I mean, that's Facebook. I mean, I just watched the trailer of The Social Network, the movie about Facebook yesterday. And, there's this part where he's talking to the attorney and he's like, yeah, in the first 2 hours that I launched the Facebook at Harvard website, I had 64,000 hits. Well, congratulations. Your experiment worked. If it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean that your idea isn't a failure. It just means that is what will drive press. And so press oftentimes does not speak to what we have when we're trying to find what David Heinemeier Hansson calls the golden egg. You want to find the golden egg. Most press is around, and most business books are around, you've gotten golden egg, now how do we optimize everything? Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about how to design your life and understand your why, because why you would be interested in a side hustle is going to dictate how you move forward. And this is really, really deep information that you have to understand yourself before you move forward, because if you don't, you're going to spend a lot of time and energy and end up where you don't want to be. Give us a call at 800-8949. And we'll talk about your ideas and what's coming up next here at
Nougat Radio, 92.7 FM. You report and the world decides. We're also at 95.3 FM HD4. You've been hearing from Kevin Cherrick, a serial entrepreneur with interesting, compelling discussions. We've got some wonderful, wonderful sponsors here on Nougat Radio and the David Tulis Show. Do tune in and do listen and patronize our sponsors. David Tulis, Nougat Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Chatter, Nougat Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Burnell, Georgia police officer Patrick Hayes resigned yesterday after he was placed on administrative leave. He was the subject of a GBI investigation after allegations of inappropriate contact were revealed. The complaint says he inappropriately touched a woman at a convenience store. The GBI says it will hand over the